The story begins in a place meant to serve the public. It was the governor's Western Massachusetts office in Springfield. This is where people go for help. But in late October, it became a crime scene. Federal agents moved in quickly and quietly. They were not there for a meeting. They were there to make an arrest. The target was a man who worked inside those very walls. The discovery they made sent shockwaves across the entire state, leaving citizens stunned and questioning the very institutions they were meant to trust. What they found was truly astonishing. Inside a simple courier box, investigators uncovered a large stash of illegal drugs. It was not a small amount. They found nearly 8 kilograms of pure cocaine. Beside the drugs was a loaded 9mm pistol, a weapon ready for use. And there was cash, a lot of it. The agents counted out a staggering $38,500. This was not a simple street-level deal. This was evidence of a major trafficking operation. It was happening right under the nose of the state's highest office, turning a symbol of governance into a hub for criminal activity. The man at the center of it all was Lamar Cook. At 45 years old, he held a powerful position. He was the deputy director for Governor Maura Healey's office in the region. He was supposed to be a leader in the community, a trusted public servant. His job was to connect the governor's administration with the people of Western Massachusetts. He was a familiar face at public events. He was seen as a dedicated official working for the good of the Commonwealth. His arrest was more than just a crime. It was a profound violation of public faith. The news spread like wildfire. A high-level state employee arrested for drug trafficking, cocaine, a gun, and thousands of dollars found in a government building. The details were hard to believe. How could this happen? How could someone with so much responsibility be involved in something so dangerous? The governor's office immediately fired Cook. Governor Healey called it a major breach of the public trust. But for the people of Massachusetts, this was just the beginning. They were about to learn that this shocking arrest was only the first thread in a much larger, darker tapestry of crime and corruption. The arrest of Lamar Cook was so jarring because of who he was. He was not a known criminal hiding in the shadows. He was a public figure, a man with an important title and a respected career. Before joining the governor's team in 2023, he had spent nearly 7 years as the director of Hotel UMass. He was seen as a successful professional, someone who had earned his position through hard work and dedication. People in his community looked up to him. He was supposed to represent the best of public service, not the worst of criminal enterprise. This made his betrayal feel personal to many. When a trusted official is accused of such serious crimes, it damages more than just their own reputation. It erodes the confidence people have in their government. It makes citizens wonder who they can really trust. If a deputy director in the governor's office can be involved in a drug ring, who else might be involved? The cocaine and cash found in his possession were not just evidence of a crime. They were symbols of a deep and disturbing hypocrisy, a stark contrast between his public duties and his alleged secret life. The initial shock quickly turned to anger and disbelief. Community leaders who had worked with Cook struggled to understand how this could have happened. He had been a partner on important local projects. He had shaken hands with mayors, business owners, and everyday citizens. The idea that he was allegedly using his position to facilitate a massive drug network was deeply unsettling. The trust he had built over many years was shattered in an instant. This was not just a story about drugs. It was a story about a profound deception that reached the highest levels of state government. For law enforcement, the case was equally troubling. An official with access to government buildings and resources presents a unique threat. Their credentials allow them to move through secure areas without suspicion. They can use official channels like mail rooms and state vehicles to support their criminal activities. The arrest raised an urgent question. Was Lamar Cook acting alone? Or was he a small part of a much bigger problem? Investigators feared the worst. They suspected that his position was not just a cover, but a critical tool for a powerful and hidden network. The investigation didn't stop with the arrest of Lamar Cook. Federal agents knew that the drugs, gun, and cash were just the surface. To understand the true scale of the operation, they needed to look deeper. The key, they believed, was hidden in Cook's digital life. They seized his computers, his phones, and any electronic device he used. Their first major target was his encrypted laptop. This device was protected by powerful security, designed to keep its contents secret. Cracking it would require the best minds in digital forensics. The DEA's expert team went to work. They spent days trying to bypass the layers of encryption on the laptop. It was a slow and painstaking process, a digital chess match against the network's security measures. Finally, they broke through. What they found inside was a goldmine of information. The laptop was not just for personal use. It was a detailed ledger for a massive drug trafficking operation. It contained records of secret shipments, contact lists, and financial transactions. The digital trail was about to blow the case wide open, revealing a conspiracy far larger than anyone had imagined. The decrypted files told a chilling story. Investigators found records of 19 different shipments over a period of just 14 months. Each shipment was substantial, weighing between 8 and 20 kilograms. The laptop contained dates, weights, and destinations for each delivery of cocaine. This was the evidence they needed to prove that Cook was not a low-level dealer. He was a key coordinator in a sophisticated and ongoing criminal enterprise. The digital records were like a detailed diary of the network's activities, all stored on the laptop of a trusted state official. This digital breakthrough connected the dots to other unsolved crimes. Agents realized that an earlier drug seizure was part of the same network. On October 10th, just weeks before Cook's arrest, authorities had found 2 packages of cocaine at Hotel UMass. At the time, it was a mysterious discovery. Now, with access to Cook's laptop, they understood the connection. Cook had been the director of that very hotel for years. The digital evidence showed that this was no coincidence. The network had been operating for a long time, using places and people that were hiding in plain sight. As federal analysts dug deeper into the decrypted data, a disturbing picture began to emerge. Lamar Cook was not a lone wolf. He was a key player in a vast and organized criminal network that had spread its tentacles deep into the state government. The contact lists and communications found on his devices led investigators to a shocking conclusion. The corruption reached far beyond a single office in Springfield. It involved a wide range of public officials who were sworn to uphold the law, but were secretly helping to break it in the most dangerous way. The list of implicated individuals was staggering. It included police officers from several local departments. These were the very people tasked with fighting the drug trade on the streets. It also included sheriff's deputies and, incredibly, 2 sheriffs. These were high-ranking law enforcement leaders responsible for entire counties. The corruption also extended into the judicial system. Court clerks, who handle sensitive legal documents and information, were also found to be part of the network. This was a conspiracy that had compromised nearly every level of the justice system. This web of corruption allowed the drug network to operate with terrifying efficiency. Corrupt police officers could provide inside information about investigations, helping the traffickers avoid arrest. They could look the other way when drug shipments passed through their jurisdictions. Compromised court clerks could potentially manipulate records or leak information about warrants. The involvement of sheriffs suggested the network had influence over county jails and law enforcement resources. The system designed to protect the public had been turned into a shield for the criminals. The state's own infrastructure was being used against its citizens. Investigators learned that the network used government buildings as safe havens for their illegal activities. The State House mailroom, a place where official letters and packages are processed, was used to move drugs. Municipal storage facilities were used to hide shipments. The criminals scheduled their deliveries during normal business hours, blending their activities with the everyday functions of the government. They were using the legitimacy of the state as a cloak for their illicit empire, making their crimes almost impossible to detect from the outside. With the digital evidence mapped out, federal agencies knew they had to act decisively. They planned a massive, coordinated strike to dismantle the network in one swift blow. The operation was given a name, Operation Dawn. In the very early hours of the morning, while the state was still asleep, tactical teams from the DEA and FBI prepared to move. They targeted 14 different locations across Massachusetts that had been identified as critical hubs for the drug ring. These included storage units, safe houses, and distribution points in cities like Lowell, Springfield, and Worcester. At precisely 4:03 a.m., the operation began. Heavily armed federal agents simultaneously raided all 14 locations. The element of surprise was crucial. They needed to hit every target at the same time to prevent suspects from warning each other or destroying evidence. Doors were breached, and agents swarmed into the properties. The raids were the dramatic result of weeks of silent, intense investigation. What had started with a single arrest in an office building had now escalated into one of the largest law enforcement operations in the state's recent history. The results of Operation Dawn were immense. The raids led to the arrests of 47 individuals, including the public officials implicated in the conspiracy. But the sheer volume of what was seized showed the true scale of the network. Agents confiscated a staggering 1.22 tons of drugs. This included huge quantities of cocaine, deadly fentanyl, and methamphetamine. In one warehouse in Springfield, disguised as an agricultural supply company, agents discovered 200 pounds of cocaine and another 90 pounds of fentanyl, enough to cause untold devastation. Beyond the drugs, authorities seized an arsenal of weapons and critical evidence. They collected 129 firearms, some of which had been illegally modified to be more dangerous. They also found dozens of encrypted phones, similar to the one used by Lamar Cook, and financial ledgers that detailed the network's profits. The raids were a major victory for law enforcement. They had successfully cut off a massive supply of drugs and arrested key players. But the evidence they collected also pointed to an even bigger challenge: understanding the powerful criminal organizations that were supplying the network. The investigation now shifted from the streets of Massachusetts to the global criminal underworld. The massive quantities of drugs seized were not made locally. They were sourced from powerful and violent international organizations. Federal agents began tracing the supply chain, following the path of the drugs from their origin to the state-run offices where they were distributed. The evidence revealed a terrifying connection between local corruption and some of the most notorious criminal groups in the world. This was not just a Massachusetts problem, it was an international one. The cocaine, investigators found, was supplied by a group known as Nueva Sangre. This paramilitary syndicate is a major criminal force, operating a violent drug corridor that stretches from New York all the way to Maine. They are known for their ruthless tactics and sophisticated logistics. The fact that a state official like Lamar Cook was allegedly working with them showed the syndicate's ability to infiltrate legitimate institutions. They were not just selling drugs to street gangs. They were partnering with people in positions of power to ensure their product moved safely and profitably. Other drugs seized in the raids had an even longer journey. The methamphetamine tablets, which were cleverly disguised to look like prescription Adderall pills, were traced back to Mexico. The fentanyl, a synthetic opioid responsible for a tragic number of overdose deaths, also came from south of the border. The supplier was identified as the Sinaloa Cartel, one of the largest and most powerful drug trafficking organizations on the planet. This meant that the drugs being sold in Massachusetts were directly funding a violent international cartel known for its brutality. This connection between local officials and global cartels revealed the modern face of organized crime. It is a complex business that relies on a network of partners at every level. The cartels produce the drugs. Syndicates like Nueva Sangre manage the transportation across the country. And corrupt local networks, like the one allegedly involving Lamar Cook, handle the final distribution. Each layer of the operation is insulated from the others, making it incredibly difficult to dismantle. The Massachusetts scandal was a stark reminder that the global drug trade is not a distant problem. It reaches into our own communities and even our government buildings. One of the most audacious aspects of the criminal network was how it moved and stored its drugs. The traffickers did not rely on dark alleys and clandestine midnight meetings. Instead, they used the infrastructure of legitimate society to their advantage. They hid their illegal products in plain sight, using deception and their insider access to avoid suspicion. Federal investigators uncovered a sophisticated logistics system that exploited both private businesses and public facilities, turning everyday locations into vital components of their drug trafficking machine. The journey began thousands of miles away. The network used legitimate logistics companies to transport drugs from the Mexican border. Shipments were hidden among legal goods on trucks that traveled through states like Ohio and New York before finally arriving in Massachusetts. The traffickers had identified 4 primary corridors into the state, using major highways to move their product. To the outside world, these were just ordinary commercial trucks carrying ordinary cargo. In reality, they were the first step in a secret supply chain that fed a massive criminal enterprise. Once the drugs arrived in Massachusetts, they had to be stored. The network used a variety of clever fronts to hide their inventory. One of the most shocking discoveries was their use of state food warehouses. These facilities are meant to store food for community programs and emergency relief. The traffickers allegedly used their government connections to gain access, hiding kilograms of cocaine and fentanyl alongside pallets of canned goods and rice. They also used private storage units and front businesses, like the agricultural distributor in Springfield, to create a network of safe houses for their illicit goods. The final stage of distribution involved the state's own internal systems. As found in the initial arrest, the network used government mail rooms to move smaller packages. An official courier box in a state office building became a drop-off point. By using these official channels, the shipments were less likely to be inspected. The network operated with a chilling confidence, believing their positions of power made them untouchable. They had turned the tools of public service into the machinery of a drug empire, moving dangerous substances through the very heart of the government. For a criminal network of this size, trafficking the drugs was only half the battle. They also had to manage the huge amounts of cash they were making. Moving and hiding millions of dollars in illegal profits is a complex challenge. This process, known as money laundering, is essential for any major criminal organization. It's how they turn dirty money from crime into clean money that looks legitimate. Investigators turned their attention to the network's financial trail, a path that led them to exclusive casinos and a maze of fake companies. The investigation revealed that the network was using 2 private invitation-only casinos to wash their cash. These were not the typical casinos open to the public. They were secret operations where large amounts of money could be gambled without attracting the attention of financial regulators. Drug profits would be brought to these casinos and converted into chips. After some time spent gambling, the money would be cashed out. The casino would then issue a check or wire transfer, making it appear as though the money was legitimate gambling winnings. This simple trick helped hide the money's criminal origins. In addition to the casinos, the network used a more sophisticated method: shell companies. These are companies that exist only on paper. They don't have any real offices or operations. The traffickers created a series of these shell companies, registering them in places like Delaware and Puerto Rico, which have laws that make it easier to hide the true owners. The drug money would be funneled through these companies in a series of complex transactions. It would be disguised as payments for fake services or investments, making it nearly impossible to trace back to the drug sales. By moving the money through this web of casinos and shell companies, the leaders of the network could enjoy their profits without getting caught. They could buy houses, luxury cars, and live lavish lifestyles, all with money that appeared to be clean. This financial side of the operation was just as important as the drug distribution side. It showed the level of sophistication and planning that went into the entire enterprise. The traffickers were not just criminals, they were running a complex business with its own finance department, all designed to profit from the devastation caused by their drugs. The arrests have been made and the drugs and guns are off the streets. But for federal investigators, the hardest work is just beginning. They now face the monumental task of analyzing all the evidence they have seized. The encrypted phones, financial ledgers, and computer files contain a treasure trove of information. Their goal is to map the entire power structure of this criminal network, from the cartel suppliers in Mexico to the corrupt officials in Massachusetts. They need to understand who gave the orders, who took the payments, and who else might still be hiding within the system. This scandal has left a deep scar on the state of Massachusetts. It has shaken public confidence to its core. The idea that police officers, sheriffs, and high-level government aides were part of a drug ring is a terrifying thought. It raises a fundamental and deeply unsettling question for every citizen. How deep does this betrayal go? Are there other officials who are still part of the network, working from the inside? The investigation has uncovered a dark truth about the power of hidden networks and their ability to corrupt the very people meant to protect society. The political fallout has been intense. Governor Healey's administration is under immense pressure to explain how this could have happened. Political opponents are calling it a total collapse of standards and a reflection of failed leadership. The scandal has become a major political crisis, raising questions about vetting procedures for government employees and oversight of state facilities. The governor has promised a full review and complete cooperation with the federal investigation, but rebuilding the public's trust will be a long and difficult road for any elected leader. As the investigation continues, the people of Massachusetts are left to grapple with the shocking reality of this conspiracy. The story of Lamar Cook is a stark warning. It shows how easily the lines between public service and organized crime can be blurred. It reveals a vulnerability at the heart of our institutions. The federal agents will continue their work, seeking to expose every last member of this corrupt network. but the questions will linger in the minds of the public for a long time to come. Who can we trust, and how do we stop this from ever happening again?